Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the LA Poker Roundup. It is December 5th, 2023, and this is our 14th episode. Man, I don't know if it's all these episodes or what, but I'm a little tired, but I'm excited. I can't believe we made it this far, man. I'm not gonna lie. This is this is a little more work than I thought it was, but I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be talking poker with you.
Yeah, 14 episodes is kind of, I didn't realize what that number was until you just said it. It's crazy.
I know it crept up on us. It feels like on the one hand it feels like
Yeah.
we've only done a couple, but thank you,
Right.
appreciate it, appreciate all you out there watching, and remember to click subscribe if you have not done so yet. We really, really appreciate it. All right, Derek. So what do we have for the folks this week?
All right. So looks like we're going to start off with, first we're going to go over some of the results that we have. Not a lot of things going on in LA, but we will, talk about the ones that did happen.
Yeah, and since there wasn't a whole lot happening in LA, we're gonna turn our attention elsewhere and see if we can't find something interesting happening around the country or maybe up in Vegas. Say, I hear there's something happening up there.
Yeah, and then on the rumor mill, we'll talking about some cheating allegations from some LA home games coming from Nik Airball and Wesley. So super juicy, spicy stuff going on Twitter.
Yeah, everybody loves some drama, and nobody can serve up the drama. It seems like HCL and Airball. So let's get into that. And after that, we're coming to the end of the show, but it's still, it's still exciting. We're going to talk about Game of Gold, get caught up, talk about what this last episode format was, do a little recap. And Derek just couldn't help himself. He got a little gamble on. He got a fantasy draft going, so we'll talk about how we think he's doing in that.
Yeah, so myself, Anthony Patessa, and Franklin, if you guys know those local players, yeah, we got together and did a little bit of a draft for the final six, so we'll go through what we did there. And then on the strategy corner, we're going to talk a little bit about live reads. Definitely there was a lot of live reading going on with Game of Gold, but then also, definitely across all the live players in LA and also with the WPT coming up. Let's just go over some live reads and how that helps or hurts maybe.
For sure. And then also out there in the Twitter space, Mr. Chainsaw Allen Kessler started up a little bit of an argument, or rather drama. Not drama. He just complaining, you know him, but he brought up the old ante first or big blind first, the age old argument. So we'll talk about how the casinos around here do it. What kind of strategic thoughts you might want to have around that, and just get everyone's update and get our thoughts on that.
And then lastly, we'll wrap up with our weekly roundup.
All right. So, as we said, we're going to start out with some local results. So, here is the problem. Being as there were no series this week, and our buddies down at the Gardens were strangely quiet on the tweeting about things, there really weren't any results that I was able to get this week. So, what I really need is for all of you to tweet us, to tag us in posts, to send us messages. Please, guys, if you make a final table or you win one of these things throughout the week in LA, you do something great, let us know. We'll love to talk about it. Send us a picture. Would be happy to get some more intelligence on what's going on out there. I only have one result that I can really let everybody know about. So I did not play a ton of poker this weekend, but I did get out there on Sunday. On Sunday, I went down to the Gardens and played in their daily. The Sunday bounty, 10K guarantee. They got double their guarantee. I busted out just a little after Reg closed, and with just exactly enough time to drive over to Commerce and max late Reg
What a grinder.
their Sunday tournament. Yeah, it's kind of nice that the Gardens daily start at 11, because that means you have time to bust and get up to Commerce, which start their dailies at 1 p.m. So the 1 p.m. at Commerce was a $150 buy-in, 10K guarantee as well. It had a $100 add-on, and with the add-on, you started with 50,000 chips. So with 50,000 chips, max late regging got me in there at the 1,500 blind level. So I got there with 6 or 7 minutes left on the break that you could register at. And, I got in there, I think there was they had almost exactly 100 entries. And when I got in there were probably only 64 people left or so. So that's pretty good value right there. And I come in with 30, I think like 33 big blinds or so. So yeah, it seems totally fine. And I
Yeah.
managed to navigate that stack up to fourth place when we chopped it up.
Nice.
Mr.
Congrats, buddy.
Yeah, Mr. Stefan Bean, a name that you all should recognize. All the local grinders know Mr. Stefan. He had an overwhelming chip lead when we got to the final four, and he took the top place in our chop. He had just shy of half the chips in play, and
Wow.
I had 2.5 big blinds, and the big blind was on
Yeah.
me, so I was willing to
It's a good
negotiate and
time.
talk chop,
Good time
because
to take a chop.
yeah, if I was all in that hand, and or if I wasn't, I would only have half a big blind. In which
What
case,
was it? Was it BB ante?
exactly. In which case, knowing that was going to be very important. And spoiler alert: at Commerce, it is ante first. So I would have been in very big trouble if I somehow made through. No, actually, in this particular spot, if I didn't win that hand, I would have been all in on the small. So I wouldn't have to worry about it unless I won the small blind. So yeah, congrats to Stefan. I got
Yeah,
fourth
good
place
job,
there, and
Stefan.
once again, that max late reg came up. I think in I'm starting to really think that all of these deep stack tournaments, especially the dailies around here, max late reg might be the way to go, Derek. It saves me money, I know, because I'm not going to fire 5 bullets in there, and there's really nothing wrong with starting with 2/3 of the field left and over
Yeah.
30 big blinds. It seems pretty solid value. I mean, I only played for 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
I think I played about
Yeah,
four
it's
and
like
a
we
half
talked about
hours
last
or so.
time, a lot of tourney pros like the late reg just because of what it does to the hourly. Like your hourly earn
Yep.
is crazy, right? If you just know how to like navigate that kind of awkward or even like a short stack, right? Be able to spin it a couple of times to a couple of final tables here and there, but just cash kind of consistently. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, late reg is a good way to go.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna analyze the structures a little more carefully for those kind of opportunities, because just like I said before, I think just when it turns into turbo time and that they start skipping levels, the amount of value that the people who ground a little bigger stack before you got there lose over time, you're picking that up, and it's hard to pass up. So let's talk about that a little more later when we get to the roundup. But that is all I have for local results. So you guys really got to help us out, please, please. If you know who won, if you won, if you do something great, let us know. Tag something. So since that's all we've got for local results, why don't we take a look around? There was one man making some headlines around the World Series of Poker circuit circles. Mr. Steven Song, a name we've mentioned before when we were talking about some strategies on what's the best way to accumulate chips, right? Mr. Steven Song won 2 circuit rings at Harris Cherokee, which was a week after he won the main event at a different Harris event. Not Harris. I'm sorry, a different Grand Victoria main event. So that's 3 circuit rings in 3 weeks. Holy cow!
Yeah. And this guy is like that's not luck. And we've talked about Steven Song before in previous episodes. And if you guys don't remember, it was just part of a general strategy chat on like playing more aggressively and even borderline spewy, right? And I put 2 players, Steven Song and Bin Wang, as 2 players in that category where sometimes when you're playing with them, you're like, wow, you just like punted on this hand. But that just kind of comes, it just like all kind of comes with the total package of how they play. And they just play really, really aggressively. Like Steven Song, I play with him. Um, He's really nice to have at the table. He's like a really funny guy actually, and he's just like nice and funny. But he's just a absolute like nightmare because his 3 bet percentage is so high. He's just so like willing to just commit a whole ton of chips into pots. So you really just have to be able to navigate really aggressive players, and he's just good, right? He's just not like a pure spear. He's just good. So yeah, glad to see a good player like him, getting really good results. But definitely, again, just always just makes us keep reevaluating this game that we play, right? There's all these different styles, but some of the ones that show a lot of good consistency and a lot of strong big podium finishes and final tables, those are the guys that tend to be a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, this guy's just world class. I mean, he won mid stakes player of the year and player of the year on the
Yeah.
GPI awards. What was it, last year? So absolute crusher. Now, one thing that I do kind of find not interesting, but one thing I kind of want to point out is that these 3 events he won, it was the $1,100 buy-in, the $2,200 buy-in, and the main event from the other one, which tend to be 14 to 17 at least $100 buy-in.
Yeah.
So these were not,
Yeah, they're
these weren't 250 tournaments. This wasn't a $400
no.
tournament. These were the 1K plus area, and
Yeah.
I I suspect that that kind of a strategy, that very smart and very aggressive strategy, is even more effective in this kind of
Right.
a tier, because I don't know about you, but I find that if you're that aggressive at the lower levels, the people don't know to fold. They don't know
Right.
when
Right.
they should be up against something bad. So you tend to run
Right.
into more, as we call them, landmines than than you would at maybe a $2,200 bind. So
Yeah.
just adjusting. Totally have to be able to adjust and apply that pressure in the competition appropriate way, right? But yeah, kudos,
Yeah, just
kudos.
playing against people who are more knowledgeable and understand when they're supposed to fold is nice, but obviously those players are going to punt less. So it actually is really impressive that he's doing this in those type of buy-in fields, especially for WSOPs too, because there's so many pros that show up for ring chasing, right? So those fields tend to be pretty pro heavy. So yeah, impressive.
Yeah. So then moving our attention over to Vegas, there just so happens to be a small tournament series that has begun there last week. You may have heard of it. It's the WPT, I think Maine something or other. I don't know. I might go check it out later in the month. I don't know. I think you might be as well. But let's see. Mr. Michael Rosito wins the opening event. So congrats to him. I don't believe he's an LA guy. I've never heard of him. I believe he actually won a win event maybe last year in this series. The thing I kind of want to point out though is one, congrats to our boy Fausto. He cashed this thing, and there were a couple other LA players as well who cashed, but unfortunately the win doesn't have full results posted yet. They really only have the final table, and I was not able and did not grab the day two seedings in time. They took those down. But the thing I wanted to point out was this was just a smashing success. This tournament had a $1 million guarantee, and it ended up having, is it listed here? They ended up beating it by double, I believe, over double. So I thought that was listed in this article. I don't see it, but yeah, this tournament had over, I believe, over a $2 million prize pool altogether. So, like, what a great
Yeah,
start! What a great start for the WPT.
yeah, I play with Michael Rosito a little bit. He's just a very good player. Another one of those Vegas regs. There's a lot of Vegas regs that are just very, very good. So not surprised to see this guy, ship something. And I actually think he shipped. I'm not sure if it was like right before this or it was last year, but he did ship like some other big win event.
Okay,
So he's
it
on a
could have
bit of
been
a
in
tear.
their winter shoes. They had a series right before this as well, right? So it could have
Yeah,
been in there.
I think he shipped the main in that one and then
Hmm,
just went and shipped
maybe
this
that
one,
was
which is
it.
crazy. Like,
Wow.
yeah, this guy's a good player.
Nice rush, nice run. Now, it sounds like you've had some experience playing with some of these Vegas regs. This is a good time. All joking aside, obviously the WPT main is a big part of the reason why there aren't any series going on in LA right now. With the WPT main now in its second year being such a big draw, in LA being so close, a lot of our players, a lot of us are going up there to play. So, this would be a great time, Derek, if you could help us know how to play against these Vegas regs we're going to run into up there. Because I've been up there. I only went up there once. I went up there for the last series and played a single flight, and I definitely noticed some differences in style and in the kind of the table complexion while I was up there playing.
Yeah, this is a very general statement, because also I don't play like the super lower levels of tournaments in LA like that often, right? But I think just in general, when we're looking at about almost like equal buy-ins around 600, 1Ks, right? And let's, take the 10K out of it for the time being. I'm gonna say what you generally see in LA is you just see a lot of, I want to say players in the middle of the spectrum, right? I don't actually encounter that many pure punters in LA in most of our tournaments. And it's really rare to see somebody that would just like pure punt and don't know what they're doing. But then I don't know if we have like super elite, like too many super elite players. There are some very, very good players. But this is the difference between here and Vegas, because in Vegas, they tend to attract a lot more tourists and from people out of town. So you do get like unbelievable punters sometimes. It's like crazy, right? Some of the people who almost seem like they never played poker before. But then you have some of the very, very best like pros in the world, right? That all live in Vegas, and a lot of them just sit there and grind a lot of these tournaments. And they're going to be guys like you never heard of, like the Rosito guy, right? Like you never even heard of him, but he's just another really, really good reg. And when you just play there, even like for a summer in Vegas or for a winter, like, for the win, you'll just see a lot of these same faces. And over time, you'll just start to recognize who they are. And they play much more close to the theory. They just, they just seem, it's almost just like, when you take all like the top 10, players in LA that you might consider, there's like 100 of those guys like in Vegas, right? So it's just it's a bit tougher but at the same time, you do have a lot more punters, right? A lot more spewers. So it's just more fun, I guess. There's just so much more variety of players and styles. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what your experience is like, comparing Vegas to here. What do you think?
Yeah, so like I said, I really haven't played many tournaments in Vegas. and none of them are really the kind of daily grindy types. The closest I came was when I went up for the was it last month or a month and a half ago when I went up for a flight in the Wins Winter Series, and in that tournament, I can tell you that first table I had, I never have had the action get to me with a three bet so often, especially in the number of times that when the first action to me it was already three bet, probably more times in two levels than it was all tournament in an entire tournament here.
Right.
The
Right.
players tended to
Yeah.
be on average far more aggressive. So
Yep.
here in LA, the players tend to be much more passive, and you know, um, keep in mind this was also like you were saying at the buy-in levels to keep them comparable. It's a little different. Typically in LA, my average buy-in is more like 400, right, with the occasional 1K. I went up there. It was a 1K. It was like a 1200 buy-in or something. So you would expect the players to be a little bit more tight aggressive or something, but it was it wasn't twice as much. It wasn't like I would say it was like almost, if I was going to quantify, it was like four times more aggressive, right? Um,
Yeah.
so that
It
was
is.
definitely one thing I could not. Here you can see a lot of flops if you want to. If you're kind of a post flop kind of player, you can almost
Yeah.
always get there cheaply. If you want to play that old school small ball, LA is going to give you a lot of chances, at least in these, in the that 500 average buy-in. But up there,
Yep.
man, you better be prepared for the heat.
Yeah. And this is, we talked also about GTO before, right? And obviously GTO doesn't always apply like super well when you're playing some of the lower stakes, but GTO does teach you a baseline. When I go to Vegas, it's also because I even the players that are not good, I'm not familiar with them, right? So usually when I'm not familiar with people, and also when I'm playing against good people, I'm going to play much closer to theory until I go figure it out and figure out how I can slowly start to exploit people, right? But without knowing that baseline, this is where GTO, it's just good to learn the baseline. You don't have to go crazy with it, right? Learn some of the basics and plug some leaks, but then you're able to apply different strategies wherever you go. And especially when you go out to Vegas and you're sitting at a table with like four unknowns who are just like nuts and then four like super pros, right? You probably just want to be playing as close to theory as possible until you start figuring some people out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think unfortunately the punters, as you call them, they look a lot like an aggressive pro until you get to see a
They do.
showdown. And it's very
Right.
frustrating because I definitely had that at my table. I had at least three really solid, aggressive players. And then I had at least two people who once I saw a hand flipped over or two, it was just like you said. It was like, are you even looking at your cards, right? So that's
Right.
super hard to play in an
Yeah.
environment like that. So definitely recommend what you say. Just try to play baseline good strategy and figure it out as fast as you can. Um,
Yeah.
the other thing I would say though is my strategy for going up to Vegas has only really been to go up for these major events. So when I went up for the World Series this summer, obviously, I played the Colossus, massive
Yeah.
field. I really don't feel like I played against a normal cross section of Vegas regulars.
No. No.
I
Yeah,
played
that's just pure random.
exactly. I played the main, same thing. I don't feel like I played against a cross section of Vegas regulars. Not at all. And the same thing here going up for the WPT. I feel like if you went up for this $600 event that smashed the guarantee by double, you would not have nearly the density of kind of those really great Vegas super pros or whatever, like
Yeah.
pros, as you would in a I don't know, like a regular Venetian deep stack 1K or something. Um,
Right.
but so they'll still be there. So like if instead of having three of them at your table, maybe you'll have like one and a half on average, right? But
Yeah.
that makes a big difference, 3 to 1.
It does.
So
And I've heard anecdotally that outside of the big, WSOP, WPT type of series, like a lot of the regular tournaments that run year round, they are extremely pro heavy, right? I think it was just like a few years ago where a lot of like the good pros that used to like reside in LA all moved out to Vegas, and that actually made the LA field even more soft. But now they've all planted themselves there amongst all the other Vegas regs. So yeah, those tend to be really, really reg heavy.
right,
But then these big events that we go out for, yeah.
like what like I think like Elvis Tumis, right? Like and Baby Shark, right? Christina Collins, they used to be
Yeah,
LA
like
players, right?
and like Napoon, Pete Hanksicoli, like a lot of those guys just yeah.
Yeah. So, I can't say I mind that. But we'll have to on the other hand, it's a great place to cut your teeth and grind your game, right? And get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um yeah, so I personally I'm planning on going out just for the main, the 10K main coming up in 2 weeks. and I don't anticipate, I don't expect it to be as soft as the World Series main, obviously, but they're gonna have over 4,000 entries to hit this thing, right? Now, the difference, of course, being that you can re-enter, which heavily increases the density of pros, right?
Yep.
But it's still over 4,000 entries, even if the pros all enter
Yeah.
2.5
You,
times,
I would say it's a bad beat if you end up with three pros at your table in the beginning.
right?
Yeah, because just of the size of the field. But then you should expect that if you get down to the final 100, that's going to be a very, very tough field
Yeah,
lift.
of course, yeah. Those rebuys, they're gonna make the money. They're gonna make the
Yeah,
money a
yeah. They're
large
gonna
percentage of the
actually
time,
smash
and
that
they're gonna be
guarantee.
there. Yeah, and the pros will make it into those later days. They're pro will not stop firing until they're in day two. So they're all gonna be there.
Yep.
So
Yep.
absolutely. But like I said, I honestly think that my tables are likely to be softer than my first table that in that 1K I went up for. That's just kind
Yeah.
of my expectation there. So
Yeah.
definitely my recommendation: go up for the really big events. Don't expect to win them just
They're
by sheer
fun.
number, but they're going to be fun, and it's not
Yeah.
it wouldn't be not going to be too intimidating, but. It does help to know a couple names or faces so that you know who to look out for if you can.
Yeah, and again, if you get some really good players at your table, it sucks, but just take it as a learning opportunity, right? Maybe steer clear of them. Don't do anything too crazy against them if there's softer spots at the table, but just watch what they do, watch the hands that they play, the positions that they play, what their bet sizing looks like, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's good advice. So, um, nothing going on in December. Now, we were really hoping that we would have the LAPC schedule by now. And in fact, DJ, hopefully this is still the case. But a week ago, DJ said he would be happy to come on the show when he's ready to announce the schedule and talk through it with us and talk about what Commerce has planned, what their plans are for the year and whatnot. So fingers crossed, everybody, that is still the case. We'll still be able to get him on. If he calls us up and is ready with it on Friday, we may have a special episode. But so far, still no schedule for the LAPC up on the website or no announcements. And I know people are really, really itching for it.
Yeah, I'm sure DJ is tinkering with all the little things that he can, but I think he's bought enough reputation with us that he's trying to do the best for the players.
Yeah, I believe it starts. They have the dates when it starts and whatnot up on the website, but and I think that DJ mentioned that it is pretty much done, like the dates of the particular tournaments. But what I believe is holding them up, and I kind of have my fingers crossed in this one, is I believe they're working on some deals to put some names on certain things. And I don't know if those are marketing deals, advertising deals, or what. Maybe
Okay.
it's an ESPN thing because they do a lot with the local ESPN. I don't know if that's some kind of series or tour or something. I don't know. I don't know what it is, or maybe it's like just trying to figure out if he can convince the casino to do certain promos or to get certain guarantees locked in. But I think it's just those sorts of I don't know, kind of business things that he needs to lock in, and he doesn't want to release the schedule until those contracts are all signed, or
All
until
right.
the higher ups have approved everything. So I think that's what's holding it up. And fingers crossed that means he's pushing hard for something, like whether it's
Yeah.
for a really big guarantee or for some sort of really great sponsor, something like that. Fingers crossed that that's what we're waiting on, and that we get it.
Well, good luck to you, DJ. Really
Um,
looking forward to the schedule whenever you get it out.
Yeah. And then the next series that actually is happening, well, I guess that's not true. The next series that's happening would be the Lucky Lady is having what they're calling a winter series. They're calling it the winter kickoff. So that's actually the next series, but we'll get to that during the roundup. That's actually starting this weekend. But the next really big series with a larger main event and larger guarantees will be the Gardens. The Gardens winter, what are they calling that? The winter special, and that starts right after Christmas. And they have now released the structure sheets and for all of those tournaments. If you are interested, go to the Gardens website, check out the structure sheets that are out, and you can see all the details on those now.
Yeah, some great events, and obviously looking forward to that 1K. It's going to be a really good one.
Oh yeah, I mean, holy cow! Have we had a 1 million guarantee tournament that wasn't
Uh,
a 2 week long quantum?
a quantum? Yeah, no, I don't think so.
I can't remember one.
Yeah,
This is great.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
actually, since COVID, I don't even think they've had. I don't even think the 10Ks really get to be
No,
If they're a million guaranteed, that's the cap. Like they don't go any bigger
right.
around here. So this is
And it's
huge.
also just because they're not WPT anymore. So I think that's just also depressing the numbers. So yeah, I don't think we've seen anything like that in
Yeah.
years.
Yep. So that's so exciting. Cannot wait for Christmas. All right. So that's all our poker tournament news for the local area. So we had to go fishing around for something else that was nice and juicy to talk about. And you know what? I don't know what in this town and what poker news in this town gets any juicier than what Hustler's always serving up. I don't know what it is about that. I don't know if they do. A conspiracy theory. They do
Yeah.
all this on purpose, and they tell people to go stir the pot just to get the press, man, because everybody's talking about it. Let me bring this up for everybody to see. The If you have not been following the Twitter drama and the poker news, Nik Airball came out on Twitter a couple days ago and said, I have someone I thought was a friend who cheated me out of $1 million+ in home games. I'll come out with details later. And I think maybe like an hour later, he's like, all right, I'm just going to name names. It's this guy. And Wesley has come out and also said that he was also cheated by this guy, Mars. So this guy has played on Hustler Casino Live several times. He apparently has been running some home games, perhaps in conjunction with Zio, another guy who's played on Hustler Casino Live. And Nik and Wesley have accused him of having marked decks, potentially having mechanic dealers, who can stack the deck and set the cards. It says here they accuse him of having marked decks that you can see with special contact lenses and cheating them out of millions. And this is a big, big allegation. Now,
Yeah.
Mars has since come out with his statement. Obviously, he's innocent. So it's a he said, she said kind of situation. He says he did not. Now, it's interesting. They accused him of all this cheating. And they accused him of, like, he did this. He brought these cards. He brought this dealer. And the statement that Poker News is quoting here is his rebuttal. I didn't bring cards anywhere. I don't know. That's a weird thing to say when someone says you're cheating, you're marking decks, and he says I didn't bring cards anywhere. Maybe it's a language thing that strikes me as odd personally. But wow, talk about drama. I don't know. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Like, who knows what's really happening in behind these closed doors, and obviously there's always like two sides to every story. But it is super sketchy for these type of things to happen, and definitely it is weird that Hustler does seem to attract a lot of drama. But I think it's probably just maybe it's just the kind of way that it goes at these high stakes like cash games. You just attract a lot of these types of players that maybe cause a lot of drama. I don't even think the Hustler is trying to bring those people in specifically. I think it just comes with part of this ecosystem or something.
Yeah, it makes sense. There's a lot of money involved. It's not shady until it becomes a raked home game, but it's kind of like
Yeah.
shady. And the people, it's not like there's a reputable website with all of the people's,
Right. Like a
the
ranking or
best
something.
gamer. It's just that there's casinos. We're in SoCal. There's casinos. I know. I think I've seen interviews with like Garrett, and he said he doesn't play home games in a very long time, ever since he was getting cheated, right?
Yeah.
And since then, it's just been casino games. You play at the Bike, you play in the Plaza, you play it wherever. And Hustler more, until they kicked him out there and kicked him out, quote unquote, kicked himself out, whatever you want to say. But like, if you're gonna be playing for tons and tons of dollars, it's really hard to trust people. Now I know me personally, this is part of why tournaments are just so much more appealing. If you go up and up and up in tournaments, you're still within a casino ecosystem. You're still within
Yeah.
groups that have invested interest in staying on the up and up. They can't have their reputations tarnished in their public, right?
Yep.
If you go up and up in the cash game ecosystem, well, the only thing you can do is keep finding rich people who are worse than you to play with, and that's a difficult thing to
Yeah.
do. And it's also the kind of thing that attracts scammers and
Yeah.
frauds and cheats, right?
And it seems as of right now, a lot of these, I guess, whales are more in private games, right? So it's actually kind of hard to access them. So you have to be able to get into the private games to play, but then there's some risk of getting cheated in the private games. I'm going to say even like the Garretts of the world, like when they're playing in casinos, a lot of times it's almost like this pseudo private game in a casino where they're, maybe perhaps controlling some of the lineups and stuff like that, right? So in that case, it is, usually not stuff that you and I and probably most people listening to this podcast have to worry about as long as we kind of stick to the mid and even like the high stakes. So we're talking about the nosebleeds, right? I
Right,
think the
right.
nosebleeds are where you start to run into a lot of these issues and a lot of this drama.
Yeah, and before I can push back a little bit on that. But before we get to that, a lot of the pros in the community have been kind of chiming in. This post here by Chris Brewer, he makes an interesting point. It's kind of a sharp point, right? If you're protecting yourself and you understand the ecosystem, if you're putting up a private game, right, you must want to win. So why would you invite someone who is really
Yeah.
good? So why would you invite anyone? You should really know why they're inviting you. Know your
Yep.
worth, so to speak, because if you don't, well, uh, you have some worth to them. What is it? And you don't know what it is. So Chris's point here
Yeah.
seems really good. He says he's always operated under the idea that if he's invited to a game, there's a reason. If the host doesn't want a piece, a piece of his winnings, or for him to bring a VIP, he just assumes that they were going to cheat him, so he doesn't go.
Yeah.
And he says, of course, the people running these games are businessmen looking to make money. If you don't somehow make them money, they are making money off of you. So,
Right.
I mean, that's
Right.
should be obvious to anyone, right? But I think
Yeah.
that does get lost in a lot of the schmoozing, quote, so to speak,
Yeah.
of these
I got
games.
invited to like a really high-end like private game up in like the Hollywood Hills like years ago. And yeah, I think we just it was my friend Bo and I we went and we played and at the end the host like kind of grabbed us at the end and kept us behind. They're like, "Hey, if you guys want to come here and play regularly, we'd love to just like take a piece of you and you can come in. We love the way that you guys were like, hanging out and talking with the other players." And we're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." But it was interesting because there it was like it was very upfront and obvious as to why I was there, and it actually made me feel like strangely like safer. You know what I mean? Like I'm there for a reason. It was clear why I was there, but I never really thought about it too much until I saw Chris's tweet, and I was like, yeah, that's true. I think if I'm getting invited to a game and I don't know why, I probably should be trying to figure out why.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to protect yourself, especially in the private game and gambling streets, because as we saw, as I saw with all the Apostle lawsuits and mess in California, private disputes involving gambling, there's almost no legal recourse. If you get cheated at cards, you're not going to
Right?
get that money back. The courts aren't going to help
Nope.
you. You can't sue. I mean, you
Nope.
can, but you're not going to win because in California, if you are gambling and you get cheated, they kind of just say, "Well, that's gambling. You could get cheated. Like, what do you want us to do? You took that risk on." Um, they will do nothing. So uh, that you have to protect yourself to the max. Now, I'm going to push back a little bit on that. It's only something that you have to worry about at the really high nosebleed stakes because
Hmm.
even with all the casinos around in LA, there is I don't know about thriving, but a large home game community even at the lower stakes. I know
Hmm.
I know a number of games anywhere that run anywhere from 1-2 to 5-10, 10-10 in in the valley, in the the Hollywood NoHo area, in these areas where it's not nosebleed stakes. It's not people buying in for 100 grand, for 50 grand. It's people playing anywhere from 300 to maybe $5,000 buy-in. Stakes where these guys who are getting cheated, like you almost wouldn't care if you got cheated. I mean, you'd care, but you would just
At
brush it
those
off,
stakes?
right?
Wow, yeah, that's shocking. Like I think I would always be careful buying in for four figures, right? In some like home game somewhere. So anything under four figures, I'm probably not sweating it too
Right,
much.
right.
But I mean, that's just so brutal that people are cheating even down at those stakes.
Yeah, and there's definitely been, I haven't seen a lot of proven evidence of houses cheating, but even without even if it's not that kind of cheating, right? So you had a tweet before where you talked about like the difference between online cheating and in real life cheating, right?
Hmm.
And of course you made the point you're probably almost certainly more likely to get cheated online, and I kind of said, well, that's true, but it's much less likely to be the kind of cheating where they're looking at your cards or you're being set up to guaranteed loss, right? It's just the kind of cheating where someone's gaining an unfair edge, right?
Right.
So I think that a lot of that other kind of stuff is something you really need to protect yourself as well. And in a home game here, it's not, it's not someone's going to be GTO wizarding you. It's the house has a dealer and they told them to take
They're
extra
gonna set
rake.
you up.
Well,
Yeah, they're
no,
gonna or they're gonna yeah.
they said to take extra rake, right? Or the house has four props playing and they're all playing nicely with each other because they're all money's going back to the house, right? And
Yeah.
this kind of stuff, Sometimes it's malicious, sometimes it's not, but you have to be aware of it, right? I mean, it's not good
Right.
to play against. If there's 7 people at the table and 4 of them are playing for the house, it's going to be tough. You can still win, but it's going to be tough, and it's definitely not fair, right? So these are spots where, do you really want to be putting yourself in that position? Probably not, right? And it's just really common, even if the house isn't trying to be malicious about it. These are just people, they just want to make sure their game runs, and it's just a slow night. You're still in a, it's still not a good spot to be in. So that kind of
Yeah,
stuff happens at the
I
lower
think
stakes too.
Yeah, as a general rule, obviously I still feel like even with all these allegations going on and the stuff we're talking about, I'm going to guess that the majority of games are just fine. They're on the up and up. They're honest. They're also just between friends and things like that. So for home games where you just know people, it's fine, right? People that have good reputations. Obviously, if you're going in there somewhere completely new and you don't know anyone, just be careful, right? You always be careful playing poker, even in casinos, but just be super careful about getting into something that you're super unfamiliar with.
Yeah, you absolutely always have to be really careful. And the funny thing is, at the games around here, I think the thing you need to keep in mind is that, like Brewer says, all the game runners are trying to make money. And for me, these guys who are running the smaller games, quote unquote smaller games, how much money can they really be making if they run the game on the up and up, right? If they run
Yeah.
a game that has rake that won't completely decimate it, the home game rake is absurd. I've seen 5-5 games where they'll rake $60 out of the pot or something. I mean, it's there's no way that game anyone can win in that game. But even if they're raking $60, if they're renting a house, if they've got 5 girls running around, in bikinis, and they've got a top shelf bar, and they order sushi, and they've got security out front, like how much money are they really making even at $60 a hand, right? Like how many players
Right.
would they need to come through there and drop entire buy-ins into the drop to make money, right? And if you think
Right.
about that, well, they want to make money, so what are they doing? They have to be finding
Yep.
other ways to skim. In home games around, I hear they'll charge dealers and the waitresses. They're not really employees. They actually are renting their job. They're
Yep.
paying, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
I think that's how a lot of strip clubs work. Actually, the girls have to pay to be able to dance, right? It's like that kind of thing. And they're just gonna keep looking for ways to take money from you. So I honestly, I started playing some home games around when COVID happened and all the casinos shut down. And they can be fun. It is fun to see the same folks, but you just gotta remember that everybody's just trying to take your money. And
Yeah.
it's just at a tournament. It's very open, and I'm obviously trying to take all your chips that we're all here to win first place. But at a home
Right.
game, there's so much distraction, right? The hosts, they're trying to make it seem like they're not trying to take your money. They're trying to make it seem like the girls are trying to make it seem like they're just everyone's here to give you a good time, but all that really means is take all your money, right?
Yeah, I really just love tournament, not only for the more strategic aspects of it, but I just feel like I don't have to worry about things. Like even in cash games, I'm just constantly worried about something or the other. That's not exactly like how I'm playing poker, right? There's always like 6 other things to worry about.
Hmm.
I feel like with tournament poker, I could just focus on poker, which is super nice.
Yeah, and there are still some of those above the board elements, right? There are still, so we'll talk about it later. There's still reads, there's still
Yeah,
moves and
yeah, yeah.
stuff. And it's
Yeah.
funny when it comes to board games. I'm a huge board gamer, avid board gamer. My favorite board games are the ones with the most kind of above the rules, outside the rules kind of gaming, right? The werewolves and the betrayal games, or the ones with a lot of politicking. But yeah, you're right. When it comes to actual poker, and when there are literally no rules and people can just be doing illegal things, or just completely, it's tough out there, man. All you home game players, it's tough out in the
Yeah,
streets. I
it
feel for
is.
you. I'll go occasionally, but like you said, I try not to play in any game where I'm going to buy in for very much. And if I go, it's just I whenever I tell someone I'm coming, the whole point is I'm just going to come. I'm going to have a couple drinks and I'm going to punt, and hopefully, and that's it. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to grind my living there.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, the other fun thing that's been going on, and I'm glad they did this month since it's so slow, is Game of Gold, right? I loved the last
Yeah.
episode. What did you
Great
think of the
show.
last episode?
It's such a great show. I have so much fun watching it. And the last episode was actually really fun. Even though they went with blind man's bluff for Indian poker round, it was it's still a lot of fun just watching like really good players try to figure it out. And then yeah, yeah, and I know we'll get into a little bit about the blind man's bluff round, but yeah, overall it was really really great episode.
Yeah, no, I loved it, and it kind of cracked me up that somehow they didn't see the that they would be playing against the person they partnered up with. So that got to be another fun twist. I loved it when
Yeah.
they finally looked at you like, wait, I have to play you.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, Blind Man's Bluff. Have you ever played it before?
I had like in college just for fun, and it never really, I don't think it was like for money or anything. So this is really funny the way that they, or interesting the way they did it because basically you would lose half your gold if you folded an ace. So, right. So that just added so much more complexion to that game, right?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that that one rule really made this
Right.
game go from just completely stupid to actually really
Yeah.
strategic.
Yeah. Really strategic. And you can just tell, Jungle Man, and it was really funny how I mean, obviously Charlie's like a world-class player too, but he was just saying how much better he was going to adapt to than Jungle Man, but you could see how Jungle Man's brain just totally like figured everything out
Mhm.
for a game that he was super unfamiliar with, right? That guy really is just some sort of crazy genius.
Yeah, I thought in his post interview, or maybe with his interview with Negreanu on the what is it, the DAT podcast, he
Hmm.
said that he was kind of figuring it out, and he also was kind of just copying Charlie in some spots because he hadn't figured that part out yet. So it was interesting to see them kind of playing off each other and learning it real time. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I've played it before. I played it when I was I played it when I was a kid actually. My family played a lot of card games growing up. Some of my friends, so we played it very young. It seemed dumb, but it was fun. And then yeah, I played a little in college. I thought that new rule was great, and I was immediately trying to kind of solve it. It's so
Yeah.
interesting, and I love that they didn't replace the cards in the deck. I thought that was a really great touch. I personally hate that because I hate memorizing things, but
Right.
it's a great touch. Adds strategic value a lot. Like in the one hand when Charlie folded the ace and he said, I knew there was only one ace left, and there were still
Right.
like two twos and a two threes or three threes or something.
Right.
And that was huge. Like that, he was wrong, but that was huge. Um,
Yeah, it's really cool watching, and I made a comment on one of Andy Stax's like tweets that it was really interesting watching them figure it out, right? Especially it was like Charlie, Jungle, and Yo specifically, like those three guys who obviously are very, very good and just very good at theory. They just they were almost able to just like figure out this game that nobody was really familiar with, right? And they were already ahead of other people.
yeah, I definitely agreed with. I think Charlie and Yo were talking about in the beginning, especially maybe just do a lot of calling, don't do a lot of three betting because you get jammed on so
Yeah,
easy. I
yeah,
agreed with that a lot. I think one thing I noticed, and this kind of, I don't know if it was just because the blinds went up, they started doing it. I felt like near the beginning, those opens, as a result of not wanting to three bet, they should have been a little bigger. In the very beginning, in a lot of the other
mm,
matches, they were at their 20K level and they're just going to 60. I mean, this is blind man's bluff. It's all about you have it or you don't. And I can see your card, right? Why? I want to bet 200. I want to bet 300.
yeah,
And then the main thing is if there's going to be a re-raise or whatnot. In my mind, I kept trying to think like, well, I feel like you're almost off the hook to call anything that's less than half your stack because you might just lose half your stack if it's an ace.
right,
But then,
right.
but then you can only do that a few times, right? So that's really interesting. I feel like this game could be easily solved, but not in the hour they had, right? Because
Right.
once you know the numbers, like okay, when there's four twos in the deck and four aces, this is what I should do. When there's one ace in the deck
Right.
and four twos, this is what I should do. When there's this. But this is great. I really hope they do more games that are kind of deep
Unfamiliar.
but
Yeah.
simple enough that you can almost solve them in an hour and then let them go at it.
Yeah.
I love it. As a board gamer, I love
Yeah.
it.
And Charlie, I mean, he was like when he was 10xing his bets when Jungle had an ace and then 10xing it again when Jungle had like a three or four.
Hmm.
Like if I was sitting on the other side of that, I would have just been like, fuck, I don't, this sucks, right? But Jungle figured it out. I mean, I'm not sure if people were just, if you haven't seen the episode, definitely go watch it. If you watched it already, I would probably go back and watch it again more carefully, especially that Jungle Charlie match, because that was an insane like brain match. Like those two guys just put on like a show, right?
Yeah,
It was
and
unbelievable.
it was really interesting the way Charlie was so, as usual, supremely confident in his reads and his,
Yeah,
mumbo jumbo. And Jungle's the one that just nailed him on those two big calls. He called right and he folded right when he had the ace and when he had the not the ace or whatever. Right, that was
right.
great.
Jungle just showed that he's like a step above other world-class players, right? That was just really, really impressive what he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, he already has a track record, but then I think when you just watch it in that sort of setting, you're just like, man, you have some other thing about you.
So I want to bring up, like, I want to talk about the fantasy draft that you did
Yeah.
with Anthony and Frank. But now, a quick aside, I forgot to bring this up a second. So let me just show it. It's funny. I wanted to bring this up when we were talking about Hustler, but it is next on my thing. So let me just quick bring up this post. There is a man named Wayne who is I'm sure a lot of you have seen the meme where someone is holding up this sign telling G-Man to give the money back. Apparently, this guy
Hi.
is going
So
to
the
stand
reason
outside
I'm
of Hustler
here
all
is
week
because,
with this sign.
well, first of all,
That's
I
so
want to
funny.
say I'm not
So-
speaking for Robbie.
I mean,
This is
I mean,
I don't know why,
it's
but God bless him. Whatever, it's funny.
yeah. In some sense, I love that poker is getting out there enough that we have stuff like this going on. That they're, like I think this is start when this is the beginnings of I don't know. Like poker's already mainstream kinda, but then when you have people doing this, I just feel like it's starting to become something else.
Yeah. But yep, kudos. I mean, I would never do something like that, but good for you, Wayne. It's fun. All right. So let's talk about your draft. Go ahead and explain. I've got the draft up on the screen for everybody.
Yeah, so Frank gave me a ping about Franklin. I think everyone in LA knows who Franklin is. He gave me a ping to maybe do a little bit of a game of gold draft for the remaining players. Anthony Patessa also came and joined us. We invited Ty, but Ty decided to opt out, unfortunately.
I didn't like that we were already halfway through the show, but all right, all right.
So it was just the three of us, but that it was really funny because then I made a mistake as these guys had wanted to basically stop watching at the end of the heads up round, but then I watched the rest of the episode, so we only had 6 players left to draft. But basically we just did like a random draft order, but we snaked it and I got the number 1 pick, but then I would end up having to pick last in the second round, which I thought was actually like a worst outcome. But basically what's happening here is that in the last round, it looks like it's going to be just a sit and go, right? And what you're going to carry in terms of a stack is how many coins you had. So my first pick ended up being Yo, and Ty, you can let me know what you think about this. Yo surprised me how good he was in the show. It's not just how he played, but even how he talked. If you paid attention to how he was talking to Jungle, how he was talking to Charlie, you can see that he was so versed in theory. I was like, wow, this guy is really, really well studied. Like he almost knows exactly what to do in every spot, like a Fedor does, right? So I was actually putting Yo up around like Fedor and Jungle Man in terms of like how good he was. So I picked him first just because he had the most chips out of the big three, I felt, right? That was why I grabbed him. And I felt like actually he might have been playing the best out of everyone up to this point. And we're seeing a small sample size, but that's why I went for Yo for number 1. But what do you think about Yo, and what do you think about the overall other players?
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't been as impressed by Yo's play. Now, yeah, he's clearly very very smart about the game, intellectual, and I agree that he's been speaking really well. But when he plays, he does such weird stuff, and I haven't even really thought it's been overall. It's probably been about net even, but it hasn't even been overall like brilliantly exploitative. I didn't feel like so. I wasn't quite as high on Yo as you were. I think I would have probably taken Fedor with the first pick. It's interesting you took Yo. He had the first pick in the snake draft in the show, and he ended up with kind of at the end of the snake draft. So you're kind of mirroring him, but he wanted to take Fedor in the beginning. Just a reminder. So I think I
Yeah.
would have taken Fedor, and then I think I would have. I think I would have had a harder time picking between Maria and Yo as a second, just because she has more chips, because she is so seasoned in tournament structures and sit and goes. I know Yo's been playing tournaments more and more lately. I personally kind of know him more just from his stream appearances, because I didn't know much about him before. I don't know when he streams, because he's a huge streamer, right? I didn't know if he's more of a cash streamer or a tournament streamer. But I think Maria has been playing the best, whether by
Yeah.
reads or by luck or by what. But I thought Maria's been playing the best this show personally. So
She's been playing fantastic.
Yeah.
And actually that was my coin flip on the first pick. It was actually going to be Fedor or Yo. And if Jungle Man obviously had about 150 bigs, it might have been Jungle, right? So it was like really between those 3 players, and I just ended up with the person with the most chips. But to be honest with you, it was really tough on Fedor just because 200 big blinds is a shit ton, right? I don't even know if there's a big difference between 200 and 240 at that point. You know what I mean?
think so.
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
really. And Maria has the most chips going to the round. Just so you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah. I think mentally in my mind it was like Fedor or Yo, then Maria and Jungle, just based on stack sizing.
yeah, I think I personally like where Frank is in this draft the best, just
Yeah,
because he was able to wheel, and I like him taking Josh over Jungle just because he does have twice as many chips, and
right,
Jungle is at half stack compared to almost everyone, so
right.
he's going to be at risk for quite a while, even if he does well. So I do like I do like letting him drop a bit here. So I really
Yeah,
like Frank's picks with given what's left. I think it would have
yeah.
been a mistake to take Jungle, despite him being, potentially the best player left. The Having half as many and being at risk the first several hands is going to be really brutal. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny too because obviously Frank had the wrap, but he typed in REA before Fedor, so I'm just gonna make him say that he made the
He
REA pick
just knew
before
both of
Fedor.
them. Yeah. He just knew them both.
But yeah, I think that Danny Anthony and Frank did a pretty good job drafting based on what we saw here. Because even though Jungle might be the most talented of the bunch, I think 100 BBs compared to 200 is a bit of a big obstacle to overcome. And then obviously I ended up with Kaina. I don't want to say she's drawing dead, right? Like I played with Kaina before. She's actually a pretty good player.
Yeah, I played
I'm
with her
gonna
a
tell
couple
you.
times myself.
Yeah, you drop her in a any table like in a regular LA tournament, she's going to be one of the better players at the table, right? Like she's actually that good. It's just that in this sick of a lineup that they had in this show, like she was like towards the bottom, but I still feel like she's a pretty good player. So I'm not like terribly upset. Obviously I think she's going to be the underdog, but she still has plenty of chips. She could be a bit of a wild card. So it'd be great if she shipped it.
Yeah, I mean, of the remaining, I think I'm rooting for her the most
Yeah,
because of several reasons. One is, and the main is just like she's the most like us, honestly, right? Everyone else there is way richer than us, and she's
yeah,
grinding the same tournaments we're grinding, and
right,
I have played with her more than I've played with any of these other people. I think I played with Kaina twice. I played with Maria once, and I've never played with any of the others. So,
yeah,
just kind of, I feel like it's kind of like little hometown rooting, and you know, doing the reads from Twitter, just reading based off of all the reactions and everything, I kind of feel like there's a good chance kind of pulls up some sort of upset here. I feel like she does a lot better than you'd expect. Just, I don't
yeah.
know. I just get the feeling, just reading some of what she's written out there, I have this, I just feel like maybe she did well. But, who knows? The rest of them are down at World Series Paradise, and she's not. So maybe that's a tell as well. There's been some
Yeah.
speculation that they don't actually finish the sit and go in the last
Oh,
episode,
no kidding.
and
Yeah, and there's also
maybe they do something.
this all wrinkle to our draft is that if the players that you drafted come in first and second, we have to pay you double. So I think I might be drawing dead on that one, but we'll see.
Hey, anything can happen. It's gonna end up
Yeah,
being turbo.
anything can happen.
What is the stakes? What are the friendly stakes here? What are you gonna?
Just $100,
Oh,
so
okay,
we'd have
all
to
right,
pay
all right,
200. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all right. Yeah, I think personally for me, I think I think my order would be, like I just don't know Yo Byro that well, and I feel like him getting to go first slash getting lucky against Nikita's team to get all those coins is kind of more skewing than
I mean,
maybe I
maybe,
think
but
he really is. But he does have the
he
coins,
did
so
he did sweep a whole team, and I mean, like those were not bad players, right? Yeah,
yeah. I mean, but I think for me the order would have been, I think Fedor, Maria, Josh because of the chips, and then Yo. But I think Yo and Josh are my coin flip. You said that your coin flip was kind of between
yeah.
Yo and Maria. I think Yo and Josh are my coin flip, and then
I
then
think
Jungle because
Josh.
of the low chips.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for chips, right, it would probably be Jungle, Fedor, Yo, Maria, REA, kinda for me. But I think because of the chips, I would have had it at either Fedor or Yo. Like I said, I ended up with Yo. So Yo, Fedor, Maria, Jungle, REA. I would have actually taken Jungle with less than half the chips of REA over REA just for the skill edge. And then REA kinda.
Yeah, I think if chips weren't a consideration, I would have went Fedor than Jungle, personally.
Hmm,
It's just Hold'em. It's
that's true. Yeah.
and then after Fedor and Jungle, I think I would have done a coin flip at that point between um
Yeah.
Maria and Yo, maybe. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I think I would have still put Maria up just for having more tournament experience. She's played in Poker Night America before. Or I mean, she's played in a lot of these like high stakes, whatever
Yeah, she
shows.
has.
So
Yeah.
I think I would have put her next, and then Yo, then Josh, then kind of if chips weren't a consideration. But
Yeah.
yep. So
Yeah, I do think the top four between Yo, Maria, Jungle and Fedor are just like in a class like this, right? And then I think Josh and Connor are the next class.
Yeah, that's fair. I can see that. So good luck. We're pulling for you.
Thank
We
you,
hope
thank
you
you.
pull off the roundup win here, and um, I hope you get the sweep, man. I hope I'm right. I hope that there's
That
some
would be
tells
really
in
funny.
Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yep.
it'd be nice to root for Kinda too.
Yep. Absolutely. So let's kind of talking about Blind Man's Bluff a little bit. Um, in a game like that, I feel like, especially in a game where nobody really knows their strategy for sure or hasn't really had a chance to practice it, I feel like live tells could play a massive, massive role. Um, which is why I really enjoyed watching Charlie kind of fall on his face with Jungle kind of owning him in those spots. But in poker in general, and especially in LA tournaments, that the ones we usually talk about, how do you feel? What do you feel like the importance of live reads are? Let's talk a little about that.
Um, I think most of our listeners are actually poker players. So they probably know this already, but then a lot of poker players probably understand that live reads isn't trying to watch somebody like a bead of sweat, coming down the side of their face or something, or like, they're twitching or something like that. It's usually about pattern recognition, right? Like maybe it's almost like how much did they bet and how quickly did they bet, right? And maybe there's a general sense if they're sitting comfortably or uncomfortably and things like that. And then really only it's like very, very novice players that might just do like the super basic tells, like, kind of like leaning back away from the table, like disassociating themselves from, when they're weak or something like that.
That reminds me of
It's
the Matt
it's it's
Damon video. You remember?
right. But like usually when you're playing players that just sort of know what they're doing, you're more just after like pattern recognition, I think. But it is still a big, big part. Like I'm probably in a stack rank of like making a decision. I'm going through all the theory parts and the sizing parts and the position parts, right? And at the very end, I kind of just take a look to see what's going on.
Yeah, I've watched some of your vlogs. I've definitely seen a couple hands you've played in a suspicious manner where you've said I had the read. I had went with the read there. So I feel like you use your reads quite a bit.
I do. I do.
Yeah, quite a bit. Um, I will say I think that the non-poker player or the novices or your buddies idea of what reads mean in poker is one of my pet peeves. I freaking hate what people think reads are, kind of what you're just saying.
Yeah.
I've told one or two other people about, that I play poker a lot recently at work because the WPT's coming up. I might take some days off. And the first guy, as soon as I said, oh yeah, my biggest hobbies or whatever is I play poker a lot on the weekends. It's like, oh, so you're a good liar. So you lie. I'm like,
Right.
whatever. And then another guy said something similar. Not he took the other he took the other side. He's like, oh, you can tell when people are this or that. And I'm like, okay, that's not very important. However, I always tell people, and I really do think that I almost don't play any GTO whatsoever. I try and think of what it
I know.
is, but because we've been playing a long time, right? We've been playing like 20 years. There was no such thing. We each read Harrington and Hold'em, and then we discarded it when it got boring because he said never play, don't play any hands. Um, so, uh, but I do agree with you. It's not about what that hand motion they made or that twitch or that whatever their leg shaking. That's like one small data point, right? That's like you're doing your
Yeah.
AI big data training. That is one trial, is one sample, whatever. That's one piece of data. That's not what you're going for. It's everything, right? And the number
Yep.
one thing, of course, is bet patterns. I always tell people the best read is when they go all in. When they
Right.
make a
Right.
massive bet, if it's like what? It's like, man, it's like this guy just like jammed for like 5 times the pot on the river here. He check jammed for 5 times the pot on the river, man. But he's doing this with his eye. I'm like, the read is he check jammed for 5 times the pot. That's all you need to
Yeah.
see, man. But yeah, I feel like um for me, reads are everything from that first stereotyping you do when you see someone or you hear about
Yep.
hear
Yep.
about anything they say about poker or how they think about the game or how they would ever.
And yeah,
Yeah,
even how they're dressed, right?
yeah,
Everything. Just every
exactly.
little thing is a signal until they disprove it.
Yep, exactly. It's more about what their tendencies are, what they think their tendencies are, what you think I love it when you get a real sense of how people play the game, right? When the OMC confirms that they're that, when they say like, oh, how could you have possibly bet that, or how could you call with that? It's like,
Right.
okay, you would never bet or call with those. Got it.
Yeah, sometimes when you just comment on a hand, it says a lot about you. Like sometimes I'm just like, whoa, I was like way over here with my read on you. Now I'm
Yep.
somewhere else.
Yep, exactly. So it's all of that, and I think that at the levels we're playing at, like I said, around here, it's definitely there's way more tournaments at sub 1,000, sub 1K, and I think reads are very important tiebreakers at that level, right? I mean, if something's
Yeah,
screaming you in the face, then you probably shouldn't go against it with your reads. But if
right.
it's close, and I think a lot of times it's going to be close. Uh, like I said, I feel like I take the GTO quote unquote line. I think after the C bet on the flop, I pretty much just don't do it. Like that's not what I'm thinking about. I'm just thinking about
Yeah,
what do I know about this person? What did they do? What are they
right.
likely to do? You know?
Yeah, I think a good anecdote is that usually if you end up like bluffing me on the river or something, you might notice that the very first thing I do if you're watching me is I look for where the button is. And the reason why I'm looking for where the button is I want to know what position you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Just confirm what position you're in. I probably knew, but I just wanted to confirm it so I can go back and like reconstruct your range, what I
Sure,
think you
sure.
should have. And then, but you can just tell from that anecdote, I'm like doing that type of analysis before I finally like, are you sitting here sweating,
Yeah, right.
right?
Yeah, and
At the
really,
very end of it.
that's the smart way. That's what reads really are, right? They're not like I put you on a hand almost ever. It should be I have narrowed your range, right? And it starts from
Yeah,
what you said. If you know that they open reasonable ranges, you can start there. If you know they're
yeah,
wild, you can just start with almost everything, right? But just reads narrow ranges, right? Or they polarize ranges, or they something, right? They
yeah.
don't tell you exactly what, unfortunately, and that's kind of my pet peeve with people who just don't know. It's like
Yeah.
on the one hand, you want to pretend you're doing magic tricks, but on the other hand, you just want to be like, oh my goodness, how are we gonna make this? How are we gonna open this up to everybody, right?
Yeah. And
Oh,
with that being said, though, I have won a lot of pots on just pure reads. If you are a little bit more open bookish, it's almost like some of those things about you bet a little bit too fast on the street when you should have thought about it a little bit more. So, what's going on here? And it could
sure,
actually indicate strong or weak, right? And it could be some of the positioning that you're kind of taking about, where you're putting your hands and stuff, right? Not to make everyone like super self-conscious, but everything that you do at the table is a signal.
of
So
course, of
you
course.
should practice being consistent.
And then one of the as far as reliable reads go, I feel like in small pots, people are more likely to give honest reads. In that, a lot of times when people are need to get up and are trying to fold early, they're not joking. You can watch them and see
Yeah.
that they're not joking.
Yeah.
Not the people. There are some people who are just chronic anglers, and they will be
Angle shooters.
giving you.
Yeah.
And it's not really
You,
an angle
yeah.
to fake to like look like you're gonna fold, but you'll know who those people are pretty quickly. And everybody else is just pretty honest. If they have to get up and stretch their legs, they're gonna be antsy to leave. They mean it. And if you
Yeah.
look left and they
Right.
look like they're gonna do this or that early when there's no
Right.
money invested, they have. Most people aren't protecting their quote unquote their reads or their tells when they have no money invested and they're just waiting to
Yeah.
act. So
That's a good point. And like
always look
just be
left.
patient. Be patient when you're about to take an action. I'm gonna tell you this little story where it almost seemed like I did an angle shoot, but I didn't, right? It was on a river and I was about to make a big bluff on the river and the player who had checked me from out of position, um, as I was reaching for my chips, he literally went to grab his chips to push them in. And I was like halfway through my motion of picking them up, and I just kind of like put my chips back down and I checked, right? Because this wasn't an angle shoot. He just really was about to pile in
Right.
his chips.
Hmm.
And afterwards, people were like, "Whoa, what was that?" And I was like, "Look, I wasn't doing that to try to get a reaction. He just reacted before I could even do anything, right? But that prevented him from actually winning a much bigger pot by doing that. So just be careful, right? I'm not gonna then just continue my motion now that I know what you're doing because I wasn't trying to like angle shoot you, you know what I mean? So there's so many different things that can just there's like almost no point. Just be patient and wait for your turn.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. I've had one, or actually, I think I can remember. I think two instances where I like to talk. Obviously, I talk a lot, and there have been two instances on a river where I've had just like a ridiculous hand. Like I have aces, and the board just ran out kind of bad, but not that bad, and the person just jams on me, and I just go into I just start talking. I start complaining about them, and then say something like, "Man, there's no way I can fold this. I think I'm gonna have to call you." And twice I've had in phrasing something like that, and the person snap roll their hand over. I mean,
Wow.
and I'm like, well, now I don't have to call you. I don't. What? I don't. I guess I fold. It's like, just wait a minute, man. Just let me get
Yeah.
it off my chest, and I'll call you. I don't.
Yeah, kind of confirm with dealers too about I don't know. Yeah, confirm with dealers too. Like I do that all the time where something's a little bit ambiguous, the dealer didn't actually officially declare an action.
Yep.
I'll just look even though I'm 99% sure about what happened, I'll just look at the dealer and be like, what happened? Right? Like
Yeah.
is that a check? Is that what is that?
Yep. Exactly. Hey, Xander's joined us in the chat. Hey, Xander, thanks for tuning in. Xander's had a little misfortune in the last week, unfortunately, a little
Yeah.
car trouble. But hey, thanks. Glad to see you here. Glad that you're doing all right.
Yeah, I hope you're recovering, buddy.
Yeah, and so talking about being clear and knowing the rules, so to speak, let's jump over to our little procedural error segment for the week. This was brought about by a tweet by Kessler, by Mr. Alan Kessler here. Let me just
Mr.
bring that
Chainsaw.
up. Yep, Mr. Chainsaw, and he was praising the WSOP for playing their tournaments big blind first. Now, Mr. Savage is a big proponent of ante first, and the TDA rules used to have it written in it that it was ante first, big blind ante first. Um, I checked the latest copy. It's now recommended that it's big blind ante first. So it's no longer official rule in the TDA rules. So that means people can do what they want, which apparently in this case means that the World Series is a big blind first tournament. Now, for all the people at home, why don't you explain what the difference between ante first and big blind is first, and why we should care?
Yeah, so this is obviously a function of the big blind ante in general, right? So I hope that every casino at this point is doing big blind ante, but the purpose of the big blind ante is that one person pays the round of antes per hand, right? That's basically what's happening, so that you don't have to have everybody putting in ante, and it was slowing the game down. It was causing issues and mistakes and things like that. So it's been one of the best innovations of forever, right? For tournament poker, but what happens is, right, let's just say that you are short stacked and it comes to your big blind. If it's ante first, right, that's actually not going to be part of your pot. That is not part of your pot. The big blind is part of your pot. So this means that you cannot win your ante back if you end up winning the hand. And that's a huge, huge like hit on you in the big blind.
Wait, I think you said that backwards. You said if it's ante first, right? Or if it's
Yep.
big. So if it's ante first, so say you only have one big blind, and you are now in the big blind. So if it's ante first, the ante goes in the middle, and now you don't have a big blind to post, which means that you're
Right.
all in, but you can only win back that single big blind, which is the ante.
Right.
Right. I think
Oh,
you
yeah.
might have said it backwards.
Oh, yeah. I might have said it backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yep.
that's right. The way you just said it is right. Yep. Yep.
Yep. So if obviously that's a really big feel bad if you're
Right.
one big blind in the big blind and you put your ante in, and then there's like 5 all ins, and then you win the hand and you get back one big blind. That's a
Right.
terrible feel bad. And if it's even worse, if you have less than a big blind, if you have a half a big blind, you're going to get a half a big blind back. Now, if
Right.
it's big blind first, you are eligible for, the matching bets from everybody who plays the pot with you. So, if you have one big blind left, there will be no ante that hand. You will just post your big blind. Everyone that plays with you, you can win your big blind plus theirs, plus their one big blind, right? So that is just a bit more of a, a bit more intuitive, I guess, and a bit more of a feel-good, quote-unquote thing. Now, the debate in which you should do kind of stems from the one side. The main things I see, there's kind of two things, but the main things I see is one side arguing, I posted the big blind ante. You are paying the big blinds for everyone at the table, and they've already paid your portion of it going around the table. So
Right.
of course you have to post the ante first because
Right.
you've been saved, so to speak, and now you're
Yep.
posting your fair share.
Right.
And then the other side of it is basically it feels bad. It comes up almost never, and it's just like it's basically it just leaves such a bad taste in people's mouths. Like you're gonna drive people away, right? It's just not fair. Like this person's already at such a terrible disadvantage, right? So I don't know. Personally, I like ante first, and I don't even know if I like it. I agree it feels bad, but I think that ante first is right personally. But I could see it going either way. I don't have a very strong feeling, but my main my main complaint, or rather my main thing is, and maybe this is just because we play too many dailies and turbos these one days around here, is that it's very, 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 very frequent that at the end of these things, average big blinds is like 8 big blinds.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you're short.
2 big blinds, 1.5 big blinds, there could be a couple people like that. It's like you you blinded yourself down there. Like I see people blinding themselves down there, and it's not even like not a lot of chips. Like at the end of this tournament on Sunday, I had 160,000, and that was the blinds were 60,000 or 80,000. Yeah, they were 60,000. So I mean, that's just there's just no chips. It's not like I didn't lose any big hands. I lost um,
Yeah.
6 big blind hand here, 3 big blind hand there, but um, now, in
I
the
think
case, yeah, in the cases where you were deep and you just suddenly lose, and like say in the hand where you and I got all in the XL, where we just happened to have almost the exact same stacks, that would be a real big feel bad. But like in the case of near the end of a tournament when everybody's really getting low and like 3 big blinds is actually enough to ladder up a couple times, I don't know. I like ante first.
I think anti first is fairer. It just seems fair, right? Because that just because of the big blind ante, because of the way that that works, it's just kind of your turn, to pay the round, so you should just pay the round. And I do agree that it sucks when you are short stack and that happens to you, but I feel like it's almost part of the game. And I think we should also remember that a lot of times what Chainsaw or what Alan argues for is actually for his style of play, and he's just a nit, right? He's a nit, right? He's a player that is going to get short stacked a lot. He is going to be very good at short stack ninjaing, right? He wants slow structure so that he can play like a nit. So a lot of what he does, even though it could benefit like some part of the community, it is always things that would kind of benefit him personally. And obviously going big blind first, right, which is what he was pushing for, is the type of things that help people that are short stacked, just like you're saying, right? Like then if you are playing some of the lower poorly structured tournaments, you get short stacked a lot more often. So big blind ante may be better just player wise for those fields, even though it's not exactly fair per round or something.
Yeah. So, Xander asked the question, and it's what we're about to kind of talk about is what kind of strategy changes between the
Yeah.
two different systems, right? So the one that comes to mind for me is you see everyone lately with doing what's in style. You go almost all in. You leave a couple chips behind. You leave an ante behind, ante and a half behind, or a big blind and a half rather. And I think that if you have the luxury of still, if there's no real big difference between going all in except for 1 big blind, all in except for 3 big blinds, I think it should change your math a little bit as to how much, depending on where you are
Yep.
in the blinds and how much you leave behind. Because if it's ante first, I think you really need to leave yourself, 2 big blinds, preferably 3, so you can get all the way through the blinds by folding. If it's a laddering situation, if you can still make
Yep.
a really good bet. But if it's big blind first, maybe you'd be more inclined to just leave a single big blind back, so that when you get to the big, you'll still be able to win, triple, quadruple up at that point. What do you think?
So Sandra is saying I feel like there's a bit less incentive to be aggressive and almost skews the GTO preflop ranges. I mean, it skews it in the way, and it's interesting that you say that because I wonder if GTO is based on because there's not really I'm not really sure there's a concept of big blind ante in GTO. So in the case that one person is paying the antes for the table, I don't think that that's the common case, and GTO is probably looking at it as if everyone were paying an ante.
Yeah, you would have to
So
run
in
an
that
ICM
case,
calculator, right? Where
right,
like the big blind has less than 2 bigs, and
right, something
see what
like that.
happens.
So I think that the way that it would skew the ranges is most likely that you just have to be more aggressive, right? If it is going to be ante first, because you don't want it to make it to your big blind. You basically just don't want it to make it to your big blind when you're short stacked, right? Because then you're going to get screwed. So you have to be a little bit more aggressive about maybe pushing your edges, right? So sometimes if I know that it's going to be big blind first, at 5 big blinds, I actually feel like I have a lot of maneuverability, right? I still do have it. When it's not going to be that, I feel like I'm screwed, right? When it gets to my big blind, so I got to be aggressive.
Yeah, in kind of a trivial case, but it does come up. If you have less than 2 big blinds and you're under the gun, right? If it's an anti-first system, I mean, you're just all in
Yeah,
dark because you just kind of have to be. You just have no value in your big blind. But if it's a big
right.
blind first system, I mean, definitely. If you have like 0.8 big blinds and you're under the gun, if it's ante first, you're all in dark. If it's not,
Right.
wait.
Right.
Definitely
Exactly.
wait.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, and a lot of times, even when I have like three big blinds, it almost gets into a situation where you never want to jam pre in your big blind. It's almost like you want to call 100% and just like stick the rest of it in on a flop and make people call you with like an ace high or something, right? If you've paired. So that also changes the way that you think about that if it's ante first, right? So it does. Um, I think you mentioned this earlier that it's like probably rare in the total number of hands that you play, but it's really important, right? When it does come up, because it is going to come up. So yeah, it's big blind first will help you when you're short stacked, but I don't think that overall it's probably fair, and that's probably why Matt Savage is pushing for the anti way first.
Right. Right. Yep. And if I have 3 big blinds left and we're say it's a final table, I'm gonna do some math. If it's big blind first, I'm way more inclined to fold all the way through the blinds because same thing. If I have a half a big
Right.
blind, I don't
Right.
mind folding all the way back to the big because I could go back up to 2 big blinds easily there. But
Yeah.
I don't want to just
Especially if
get my
and
half a big blind
especially if
back.
you round pay jumps, right? Like for sure, like
Yep.
you're doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. In fact, in the Sunday tournament, because I late regged, I didn't really build a huge stack. I was always in the 30-ish range. But then when we got to the final table, I was one of the bottom 2 stacks. And everyone else was just blasting off and punting, and there were a couple coolers, but from 9 to 5th place, I was just high fiving the big stack to my left who kept getting ace king king queen pocket. He had aces, and it was incredible. He opened up with aces, and this older gentleman who was playing very very tight, flatted him, which every time up until then had meant ace jack or better, but not a pair. Flop came out 10 high. The guy bet. The older gentleman, I think, check jammed or just jammed on him because he'd done that. I'd seen him do it 3 or 4 times in the tournament up to then. There'd always been an ace
Hmm.
on board. He showed every time. It was ace queen, ace king, ace jack. But he did it this time on this 10 high board. Guy snaps. The guy has ace, the old man has ace queen, no pairs, no draws. And, the aces just scoops it up. But that guy had probably the 4th most chips at the time, and he just goes out in 8th place. So
Yeah.
if I have 3 blinds there, I'm gonna make you play and not blast off for the absolute maximum amount of time because I'm gonna
Yeah.
be counting how many blinds I can live through. I'm gonna be counting if it's ante first or not. I'm gonna be looking if you're gonna have to keep it under control as long as you can.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, half this table just blew up in
Yeah.
less than 7
you
hands,
want-
I think.
Yeah, if you want to watch like proper short stack strategy, definitely watch a lot of those Poker Go high stakes, like the Poker Masters and things
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. When you see a lot of those like world class players when they get short, it is like a master class in short stack ninjing. Like I learned so much of my short stack strategy from watching those guys.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
So after talking about how important that is, you probably are going to want to know which venues do what because as some people had said in the tweet and whatnot, they hope everyone does it the same way, but let me tell you, they don't, and particularly around in LA. So get your pens and pencils out, guys. Let me tell you, I did a little research, and this is what I found. And I still encourage you to ask the tournament director when things start getting late and short, but this is what I found. Hollywood Park and the Bicycle do big blind first. So if you have 1 big blind, you get to win big blinds. However, during the Legends of Poker, when it's and all the WPT events, during the WPT events, it's ante first. So they force them to play their tournament ante first. So the bike's kind of confusing. They do it both ways. But for all of the tournaments at the bike that are not WPT, big blind first. Every place else around town, as far as I can tell, is ante first. Commerce is ante first. Lucky Lady was ante first. The Gardens ante first. So they're still playing it by the old TDA rules, and so it's something to be aware of. It's going to change your strategy a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. So Hollywood Park's stance is that it's more player friendly, so they'll do that. I think that's probably the bike probably got some complaints about it, so that's why they're trying to do it. But that is their stance, and every place else's stance those are in the rules, right? That's the WPT rules, or that's the TDA rules.
So remember this when you're out of the WPT and you get short stacked in Vegas over the next like month or so.
Yeah, ante first.
Ante first.
Okay. Well, I think that does it for all of our topics today. All I've got left is the roundup.
Let's get to it.
All right, let's go. So this weekend, once again, there are no series, no big series rather. However, there are some special events. So this weekend, the Saturday, well, actually, let's start with Friday. The Friday tournament at Hollywood Park is a special 25K, $100 bounty event. So that is much larger than the regular buy-in. That is a $300 buy-in. And then on Saturday, they're having their 50K Saturday special. So that's a nice one for Saturday, 50K starting at 10 a.m., which is interesting because on Saturday as well, over at Lucky Lady, they will be starting their winter kickoff tournament series. So this Saturday at Lucky Lady, they're having a 30K guarantee tournament for a $250 buy-in. Interestingly enough, that starts at 3 p.m. So, I don't want to jinx my Hollywood Park day, but I could see some late regs happening in my future because the registration at Hollywood Park is open until, I believe, 2:30. So through the first 8 levels, and they're all a half hour long. And then the registration at Lucky Lady is open until 6:30.
Wow.
That's pretty late. So
Wow.
I will be, there's a very good chance I'll be going to both of these.
Yeah, Xander says he's going to see you at Hollywood Park on Saturday.
Yep. Oh, and another thing, I've been told by David, the tournament director there, that they intend that this will only be 9-handed. I know typically for these special
Nice.
events, they're 10-handed. Unless it's like a 100K guarantee, the plan is for it to be 9-handed. I double checked because I'd stopped going early because of 10-handedness. Hate it. But he says 9-handed is the plan. So everybody
Nice.
get there, hold them to it. So let's see. On Sunday, Lucky Lady will be having a 10K guarantee. That's their normal one. And, tournament on Monday. Over here, there's no tournament on Sunday at Hollywood Park. They have a football game, Denver versus the LACs at the Chargers. Yep. So other than that, we just have our regular dailies at the Gardens and at Commerce. But yes, I will see you at Hollywood Park on Saturday, Xander, and hopefully we do not go to Lucky Lady. All right, that is all I've got.
Yeah, it looks like, not a lot of stuff going on, but there's still a couple of things going on that you can always go out there and get to play. So the people who are going out to Vegas, for the WP to win. Good luck to you there, or good luck wherever you're playing around LA.
Well, you're going to Vegas quite soon, aren't you, Derek?
Yeah, I'm gonna head out there for definitely the prime, and then most likely the main too. So I just got a whole lot of stuff going on at work, so I might be back and forth a little bit. But yeah, definitely gonna be
I
out there for a
gotcha.
bit.
When are you
Yeah.
heading out? When are you leaving for the first leg, anyways?
Most likely I'm gonna be out there this weekend, but I'll have to just kind of see which day I might play. I might even just do like one of the weekdays and then just fly back down again. We'll see.
Oh, all right, all right. Well,
Yeah.
hey, I hope you're doing really well, and I have to do the show myself on Tuesday. Believe the Prime is the Prime still going on Tuesday or no?
I think it should be. I forgot. I haven't actually looked that closely at the schedule, but it feels like that's probably when like the day 3 or day 4 is gonna be. But yeah.
All right. Well, good luck. Good luck to Derek up there.
Thank you, buddy.
Have run good, do well, and I hope I don't see you next week then. But either way, we are out for the week. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Once again, send us your results. Hit the subscribe button. Tell a friend. We will see you out there. And until next time, we will see you at the tables, guys.
See you at the tables.